Hi, I'm Raymond, and I'm going to walk you through a tutorial in this video of how to set up either your SlumberTek or your TrampleTek Blue using the easy mode installation. So the first thing that needs to happen, you need to come to the docs.ase.com if you're not already here. Then you're going to go to your requirements, make sure you have Home Assistant installed on a Raspberry Pi or old PC or something, and that you have ESPHome also installed on that Home Assistant instance. All right, now we're going to get to the easy mode installation. We're going to click on the easy mode button over here, and we're going to scroll down to these purple buttons. If you do not see a purple button here, it is because ESP Web Tools only works with Google Chrome or Microsoft Edge. If you're using another browser, it might work. I know things like Safari and stuff are not supported. So the rest of the process is going to be the same regardless of whether or not I pick a TrampleTek Blue or its firmware, but I'm going to click on one of these buttons. I'm going to click on SlumberTek, and it's going to open up this serial port connect. Now, this may be blocked by pop-ups, so make sure that your pop-ups enable, or you've enabled pop-ups for the site. Okay, so now I actually hadn't plugged in my device yet. I'm going to plug my device in now. So I'm going to plug in my SlumberTek, and boom, it showed up on this list. So if you have a bunch of devices already, or you've already plugged in your device, this might be full of things and you're not too sure which COM port is going to be the right one. My suggestion is unplug, plug it in, wait until this point. So I'm going to use now, because I know this is the one that just showed up after I plugged in my device, that it's COM48. I'm going to connect. I'm going to wait a couple of seconds, and I'm going to say install the firmware, and I'm going to say install again. It's going to warn me about everything on the device is going to be erased. Well, the only firmware that was on there, if you just gotten your device, is going to be my QA firmware, which just, if you press on the mat when it's plugged in, I think it turns like green, and if you lift off, you take your hands off of it, it'll turn red. And it's just on the little circuit board, just to let me know that it's working correctly before I send them out. Okay, great. We're moving on now. It's finished erasing. Now we're installing. This usually doesn't take anywhere close to 2 minutes, and we're done. Great. Okay, so at this point, I have gotten reports from people that sometimes their browsers crash. I don't know why. It doesn't happen for everybody, but it basically means that when you get, either when you press next or when this finishes, your browser crashes and you don't see this screen. Well, I'm going to pretend like that happened and get us back to how to configure your Wi-Fi. So I'm going to pretend that my browser crashed at this step. I'm going to open up a new one. I'm going to go back to the docs.ase and go back to the easy install mode. And now I'm back here. I'm going to click on this again. I'm going to pick the same COM port and connect to the device. And then it go, oh, wait, like, what can I do? There's no way to configure my Wi-Fi. I don't know why this next thing happens, but it does. So click on the logs and console. You don't even have to wait for anything to show up. You don't need to reset the device. Just go back. It'll reconnect again. And then suddenly it's got more information about the project number and the version number. And now we can connect to Wi-Fi. So I'm going to go in here and connect to my Wi-Fi. That should take a few seconds. Okay, and now I'm going to do the easiest way to add it to my Home Assistant, which I'm just going to click Add to Home Assistant. Here it's going to ask if I want to go to this URL, if this is the URL for my Home Assistant, which it is for mine. I'm going to say save. I'm going to say open link to open to that. I'm going to log into my Home Assistant. Then it's going to say, do you want to set up ESPHome? ESPHome's already set up. I'm not sure why it asks it like this. I think it's like set up this new device. So here's my new SlumberTek with the 6 digits of the MAC address at the end. That is what the SlumberTek plus a bunch of digits are. Do you want to add this node to Home Assistant? Yes. Do you want to pick an area? I'm going to pick just something called the testing room. I'm going to click finish. And then I'm going to click over to overview. And then magically, here it is. Here is my new device. It has now been installed. And if this worked perfectly, you are done. I will talk about the UI elements in a different video, but we're finished. You don't have to watch anymore if it worked here. If it didn't work, the rest of this video is going to be things that can go wrong and then how to fix them. One of the most common errors I get actually is the API encryption, for whatever reason, turns off. I'm not sure, or expires, and you will see an error show up at the top of here instead of this update Home Assistant error. I don't know why it happens. Unfortunately, the only solution that I know is to do exactly what we just did and reinstall it from scratch. So that way it can connect in whatever IP or API encryption process that it wants to put in. Sorry, that's the only way I know how to fix that one. This is another really common one that I see a lot, which is, for whatever reason, Home Assistant and ESPHome don't know the IP address of the device you just created. So, and you get a pop-up that looks like this, where you have a blank host, and this is just the default port for ESPHome. The only way I know how to solve this one is you actually have to go back into the docs again. So docs.asa.com, go back into the firmware install button, click the same device that you are trying to fix this with, and go to logs and console. Actually press reset device, and it'll give you a bunch of stuff. But one of those things it should do, as we scroll through here, as it tries to connect back to the Wi-Fi, here we go. Inside, you will see that there's like a Wi-Fi connected, and it will tell you the IP address of your device. If you take this number, so just that part of this number, and plug it back into this host, sometimes that just solves the problem and you never have an issue again. Again, if this repeatedly happens, the easiest solution is to redo the installation process from scratch. So that's how I know how to solve that one. So another problem that I have heard about and also had it happen to me as well is sometimes the device's firmware will get corrupted. It doesn't typically happen, but when it does, you will know, because basically when you plug it into a computer, you'll hear kind of the USB attach or connect, and then it'll disconnect, and it'll connect a second later, and then it'll disconnect. And it's actually the firmware trying to boot, failing, and then rebooting again. So typically, you might also see it if you were to connect it up to the screen, right? You would just see this kind of beep boop sound, and then you would plug it back in, and it would go back and forth multiple times. So the way to fix this is we have to put it into boot mode. And in order to put it into boot mode, so this is a picture of a TrampleTek, we need to press the boot button on the side of the device. Now, some of the cases, the newer cases now actually have a hole in them, enabling you to put a small screwdriver, or in this case, a toothpick through to gently press the button. But it is a little hard to do because the device needs to turn on while the boot button is being held down. So if you're able to pry the case off, which is kind of tough, they are intentionally on there kind of hard, you can try to wedge your finger underneath them. Be careful not to bend the circuit board too much while you try to wedge off the case. You then need to plug the device in. If you've taken the case off, you can plug the device in, hold the boot button, and then tap, press and release the reset button, and that'll put it into boot mode. If it's connected to your computer, it'll stop connecting and disconnecting, connecting and disconnecting. It'll just go solid, and you can go back to the easy mode installation and do a regular install. If you have the hole, it's a little bit trickier to do, because what you need to do is you probably want to plug in the device, disconnect it from your computer, but plug in the USB-C. You then want to hold down the boot button with a screwdriver, a little screwdriver or a toothpick. And while it's being held, then you need to plug the device into power. So you need to plug it back into your computer. Sometimes you need 3 hands for this. It's not ideal. It does not happen often, but that is how you can get the device into boot mode, which will enable you to rewrite the firmware so it'll stop connecting and disconnecting. Another common thing that can happen, especially if you have taken control of the device, which is something you can learn about in this section of the docs. If you take control of a device and then you update it using the over-the-air Home Assistant update button, sometimes it can lose its Wi-Fi credentials. There's a certain way that can happen. Anyways, the easiest way to get the Wi-Fi credentials, if you can plug the device back into a computer, this is the super easy way to do it. Again, you can go to either one of these buttons, click connect, find it, connect to it. Again, it's not showing me the Wi-Fi or anything. That's fine. We're going to click logs and console for whatever reason. Then we're going to go back, and then magically the change Wi-Fi, or if it's lost its Wi-Fi, it'll say configure Wi-Fi here. Click in and you can change what you need. Okay, the other thing that you can do, and I will put it in the description below, is if it's really hard to go and plug the device back into a computer, there's a way to get to the fallback Wi-Fi access point of the device specifically. And through that, you can give it your Wi-Fi credentials through that. I will put a link in the description of how to do that from the ESPHome docs. Another issue that I have seen in the past is actually when you go to update your SlumberTek or your TrampleTek from, this is the Home Assistant OTA updates, go ahead down here to press the update button and it will do nothing. You'll press it and it'll just flash and then won't do anything. Again, I don't know why this happens. If you do a restart of Home Assistant or you do a restart of the ESPHome builder, so hit here, then for whatever reason it clears whatever problem there is, and then you can go back, press the button, and it should work. That is all of the issues that I hear consistently. If there are more, please join the Discord. I'll have it in the description below. Tell me about them and I will add them to this video. So thank you.